Scotland podcast. Industry updates and best practice to promote, support, develop and protect the Scottish red meat sector.
Hello, and thank you for downloading the Quality Meat Scotland podcast. I'm Mark Stephen. I was thinking about this the other day, but the only thing we can say with any degree of certainty about the new normal is it isn't. Just about every section of life, domestic, social, workplace, we're having to change, we're having to adapt, constantly trying to find new ways of making old things happen. And to be honest, sometimes it's a bit hard to keep track of it all, which is precisely why QMS is producing these podcasts, just to try and explore some of the options, kick around a few ideas, and to keep you informed about what their team is up to. This week, I'm joined by Kathryn Kerr, who's Interim Head of Brands Integrity, and I'll find out what that means in a minute, and Assurance Assessor Steve Donne. We're all doing this from home, so I'll just check we can all hear each other. Everybody still there?
Yep.
Good. Okay then. Right, Kathryn, seriously, starting off with your job, forget the interim heads bit, but what do you mean by brands integrity?
So my role is to develop and deliver brands integrity projects. My main focus will be on the assurance schemes that we deliver. We've got the cattle and sheep scheme, the pig scheme, haulage, auction markets, processors and feed schemes.
How have they operated pre-lockdown?
Everything was just as it was. Audits were being carried out. We contract Lloyd's Register to do the audits on behalf of us. So they were out doing audits. Everything was absolutely fine until the 18th of March. We took the decision to suspend all routine face-to-face assessments.
So prior to that, somebody was jumping into a car and actually driving to a farm or driving to, an abattoir or a meat processing plant or whatever it was?
Yeah, basically on cattle and sheep farms, pig farms, they were going on site, they were getting themselves ready, going on the farm, looking around all the equipment, all the animals, etc. The same with the auction markets and the processing sites. Obviously, with this pandemic, we had to put a stop to that to kind of save ourselves and watch, what we were doing with the health and safety of the staff, contractors and the quality assurance members. So after we suspended the face-to-face assessments, we worked closely with Lloyd's Register, who is our certification contractor, to develop a remote assessment tool. The remote assessment tool will enable a full quality assurance assessment to be conducted across all of our schemes.
Steve, do you actually work directly for QMS?
No. I work for Lloyd's Register.
And as an assurance assessor, which area were you dealing with? Were you dealing with all of them?
Well, yeah, just about. Sort of Ayrshire area, Stirling, Fife, Peebles, Galashiels sometimes.
And what part of the process were you actually looking at? Were you looking at the meat itself, or you were looking at the processing or the haulage, or what?
It'd be on-farm assessment, from sort of calf to sort of finished, or lamb to finish produce.
And what kind of thing were you looking for?
You're looking at several things, really. You're looking at safe use of medicines, also the animal welfare, the accommodation, and the general appearance of the farm as well, from the general public perspective.
If a farmer knows you are coming, do they tidy the place up before you get there?
Well, the thing is, they should be tidy, obviously. But yeah, I suppose there's busy times on farms where everybody is rushed off their feet and this, that and the other. But more often than not, a huge percentage of farms are run in a very clean and efficient way.
In the old days, you'd have jumped in your car, driven through Glasgow, going down to Ayrshire, whatever, and gone onto somebody's farm. How's it working nowadays?
Well, now, from the sort of 20th of April, we attended a training session for, sort of remote audits. I must admit, in the very beginning, I think we all were sort of skeptical of how it's going to work and how you're going to implement it and so on. So my first phone call was on the 20th of April. And I phoned this gentleman and I explained who I was, a little chat. And then I said, it's about the yearly assessment. And at this moment, as you know, we're unable to come onto farms. So I said, now we are carrying the audits out now remotely. So I asked him then if it was possible to sort of just talk him through the remote procedure, which I did. And there was a little bit of a silence at the end, but then
it's trying to absorb all this information.
Yes, and also, on a few occasions, mobile phone network on the process then of smartphones. So, I explained again, and then I asked then, is there any younger, members of the family, wife or even
Do you
children?
have any children? Yeah, exactly.
That's right, and very often that was the case. Yeah. So my daughter's here, my son's here. So, and he went on from there, and they have worked absolutely perfectly.
Let me get this straight, Steve. What you're getting them to do is basically hold up the phone camera to, the medicine shelves, or to the beasts themselves, or to the general farmer. Effectively, you're using them as cameraman on site.
That's right. And on occasions it's the farmer, the son, or the daughter, or the wife, and everything that I need to see as an assessor, I see, and I've even had quite a few virtual tours of the farm on a quad bike, in the cab of a truck. Because this time of year, cattle are out, stock are out, so and there is need to see some or a sample of stock anyway. I've always given the farmer the option that I can carry out the audit weekends, or I've done a few audits at 7:00 in the evening to suit them, and it works very well indeed.
That's brilliant. Is it just the farmers that are being virtually assessed this way, Kathryn? Or other areas of meat production being done the same way?
No, so at the moment we've been focusing on the cattle and sheep and the pig scheme because they're obviously the biggest scheme. We have almost 10,000 members in the cattle and sheep scheme. I think they've already started the haulage this week, and so far so good. And also the processing and auction markets are one that we're looking to start very soon as well.
I think an awful lot of the public would be surprised to hear that it is not just the farmers, Kathryn, in a normal run of things, that are being assessed, that every stage of production is being assessed for quality.
It's something that we've, obviously, since we started the remote assessments, we trialled it on the cattle and sheep side. So far, so good. The pig side has been going really well. It's got its ups and its downs, so not everybody can accommodate a remote assessment. You have some members that can't accommodate because they just don't simply have the signal, they don't have the camera phone and such like. So those ones are being prioritised when we go back out to the physical aspect of the assessing. As Steve touched on earlier, it is a two-stage process, so there is a submission of documents for the paperwork side, followed by a live stream assessment where possible to conduct the full audit.
And Steve, these current virtual assessments, nobody knows how long this is likely to continue for. Is this it? Is that the assessment finished, or will there be a follow-up on-site? You physically have to go there to rubber stamp the virtual ones when restrictions ease.
Well, if there is a breakdown actually on the live stream day on the network, and if you haven't seen sufficient at that time and you cannot reconnect, well then I would have thought that a spot check would be done at a later stage.
But if everything works smoothly and you can see everything you need to do effectively, I'm maybe putting this the wrong way, they have passed the test. They've got the tick box and that's it. Yes,
because it's the virtual. The documents first is seen, photographs or PDFs, and it's in great detail. All what you would want to see and would have seen on the farm. On the live stream, as I say, you walk around the farm, you see everything, and I even asked for a scan of the farmyard, just to see if the tidiness is there from a public perspective.
Explain why that's important to me. Why is having a tidy farmyard important?
Well, if you were looking into a yard and it was very, very untidy, and you knew that there was beef coming out of that farm or lamb, would you be happy, if you could ask yourself, if you would be happy with eating anything that was produced on that farm?
Kathryn, how many of these virtual assessments have been carried out so far since whenever it was in April?
So since the middle of April, we are almost at 300 for the cattle and sheep scheme and 20 for the pig scheme. I believe there was one carried out last week, or maybe the start of this week, for the haulage scheme as well. So we are slowly getting the numbers up there. There is more engagement now, and assessors are engaging a lot more as well. I think what Steve said initially, it is quite daunting going from getting out on farm and having that chat with the farmer to being stuck behind a computer screen and having to do it remotely. It is very daunting for both farmer and for assessor. So it's once you've kind of overcome that stage, I think it is really worthwhile. Nothing beats the physical aspect of the assessment, but unfortunately in these times, this is the only option we have.
Yeah, and it does seem to be working rather well. We spoke to one of the farmers who's already been through this process, and this is how he found it.
Hello, I'm Vince Jansen, farm at Knoxvold Farm near Dunblane. We have sheep and beef cattle here, and we've just recently completed an online or remote farm audit with QMS, and it's been a good process. I was a bit apprehensive to begin with, to be honest. I thought I was going to be spending a lot of time scanning and copying documents and then attaching them to emails, but once I sat down to do it was actually very fast. A lot of the documents were able to be downloaded from my farm recording program as PDF files and then attached to emails. And the assessor was happy to take photos of the phone as well as evidence of things. So all up, it didn't take too long to submit details, and we then arranged for a farm tour 1 or 2 days later via a WhatsApp video call. And again, that was easy enough. I think going forward, I would like QMS to do more of this. I think an actual physical farm visit would still be the way to go. But for submitting documents, I think the online system like this works really well.
See, that's really interesting, Steve. That kind of response, is that something that's normal?
Yes, it has been. There is, as you say, an element of nervousness. And I think because as well is if they're not up with the technology and they've got no one else to sort of fall back on. And in fact, if I may say this, there was a gentleman the other day, he was in his 80s. He said to me, this is my first WhatsApp. I've tested my ability, he said, on you. And I said, well, I've done the same, and it worked well. Yeah. It worked really well indeed. And he was over the moon that he completed it all. And in fact, during the assessment, we lost contact several times. And he still came back. He could have said, I'm not happy with this, I'm not doing it. But no, he proceeded with it and persevered, and it went really well.
Good on him. But these assurance assessments, Kathryn, are important. And are a QMS confident that you're hitting the same standards, that you're getting the same quality by doing it the virtual way?
Obviously, nothing beats the physical aspect, seeing the stock in the flesh and getting the atmosphere on the farm. But from what the feedback we're receiving, we're able to see probably the paperwork in a lot more detail and spend more time looking at that. Because at times, farmers are always busy. They don't want to be spending 3 hours sitting with an assessor going through paperwork, etc. So the ability to do that away from the farmer, they sent it over, they're looking at that takes time off the member. So it gives them an opportunity to spend more time looking at the actual stock, the physical aspects outside. I feel that working closely with Lloyd's Register, all aspects are being considered, previous history of the membership. If there's any welfare concerns raised, we are able to conduct spot checks where we can potentially get in touch with Scottish SPCA that we work very closely with if there is a concern raised at any point. But yes, I am very confident that we have the ability to look at everything that is available, and where we aren't, they're raising it as a spot check. Where they're not confident they've seen everything that they want to see, or there's not been the ability to see that, they will potentially follow that up with a spot check to ensure there is continued compliance for that membership.
See, in the old days, pre-lockdown, Steve, I would imagine there's probably some farmers out there that were quite happy to see you coming up the drive because it was company.
Yeah, and it's surprising the conversations that you have on the phone, even during the live stream. They like to chat. I mean, I've seen me an hour and 15 minutes on one call. My phone is red hot, but you can't rush these people. And as you say, they are out there, and a lot of them are on their own, and they like a chat. Yeah, I think you're right. But I don't think that's lost. The only thing that's lost for me it is a cup of coffee and a biscuit.
It's interesting. Well, last week was Mental Health Awareness Week, and RSABI have just launched their campaign to keep farmers and crofters talking. Yes, it's virtual. Yes, it's on a phone, but it's still part of the old normal. Last one to you, Kathryn. If these virtual assessments are working, could they become the new normal when restrictions ease? People like Steve spending less time in cars, less time going up farm drives, etc., but maybe covering more ground in a virtual way.
Certainly, I think remote assessments are certainly elements of the process is something that QMS want to continue with. It's given us the opportunity to, your remote islands, you've got the ability to, if you can't get to those islands, you can carry out an audit remotely now. So now that we've introduced this, we can continue that. I would like to see the paperwork side also being continued, where members submit the paperwork, and it eliminates the time spent wasted on paperwork time on the farm, and you can actually focus on the stock, going outside, seeing what the farmers are most proud of, the stock themselves. I would much rather see the assessors going out spending more time on that side of it than going over the paperwork at the time of the audit. So I think it's something that going forward, it will save a lot of time, especially for the farmer.
All we need now is reliable broadband throughout rural Scotland.
Absolutely.
We'll just not hold our breath waiting for it, that's all. Listen, Kathryn, Steve, thank you both very much for talking to me. It's very kind of you. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much for downloading this too. We'll be back next week with another podcast from Quality Meat Scotland. In the meantime, I'm Mark Stephen. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Quality Meat Scotland podcast. For news and to listen back to previous episodes of the podcast, visit qmscotland.co.uk. For Scotch beef, Scotch lamb and specially selected pork recipe videos and inspiration, visit www.scotchkitchen.com or follow Scotch Kitchen on Facebook, Instagram or Twitter.